You're listening to Worldview on Chicago Public Radio. I'm Jerome McDonnell, and it's time for another installment of our Global Activism series. On most Thursdays on Worldview, we devote a portion of the program to people who are doing things to make the world a better place. And today we feature a woman who's made a difference with shoes. Mona Purdy is the founder of the Share Your Souls Foundation. They've brought footwear to children in more than a dozen countries. They've also helped communities in Chicago, Appalachia, and Native American children as well. And Mona Purdy told me how the Share Your Souls Foundation got started.
I started Share Your Souls 3.5 years ago in Guatemala. It was the month of April. I went down to Guatemala to help a friend of mine who's a cyclist. I brought supplies down for his cycling team that they had lost all of their supplies. They had no pedals or water bottles and stuff. So I went down there thinking I'll go and hang out with them and just get out of Dodge for a little bit. When I went down there, I stopped in the town of Petén, which is in Tikal. It's in the rainforest part of Guatemala, really poor. And they had this little local race going on. So I thought, oh, I'll enter it. It was a half marathon. Before the adults ran, the kids ran. And I noticed they didn't have shoes on, and on the bottom of their feet it was like black and shiny. And it was gross. I was like, ew, it looked like oil. I later found out it was tar. And it's real common for kids in these little villages to put tar on the bottom of their feet. And it's like leather soles. And they ran on a sweltering day on gravel to win a little trophy. And that didn't bother me because I did my run, and while I was running, the kids, I never started a race at 1 in the afternoon either.
Are they trying to prevent infection with or
they do it so that they can run on gravel, barefoot, and glass, and who knows what else. And the street's hot on fire. It was probably 110 this day. Sitting in the shade, you're going to sweat. So we ran at 1 in the afternoon. The heat of the day, we're running, and they were running after me, giving me water bottles. And some of the kids were on bikes, chasing me down. And I know I was the biggest white woman they'd ever seen. And it was weird, but something happened to me. I don't know what happened that day, but on the way home, I couldn't get these kids out of my head. It's like they got inside of my head. And that song that Diana Ross sings, you guys know that song, reach out and touch somebody's hand, make this world a better place if you can. And there's another line to that song. If you see an old man on the street, just remember his shoes may one day fit your feet, something like that. And I was crying my whole way home, and the stewardess were asking me, what's wrong? And I was like, man, I saw the strangest thing on this trip. And I saw a lot of great things, but I couldn't get these feet out of my head. And I have like big feet, and I know when my feet hurt, it's like it ruins my whole day. So I started collecting the shoes when I got home.
From who? What did you do?
Well, I went home and I told my kids what had happened. And they're like, yeah, well, what did you see? Did you see snakes and stuff? I go, yeah, I saw that. And they go, but did you buy us anything? I'm like, yeah, but I kept going back to the kids. So I told my little daughter, she was 8 at the time. So she comes down the stairs, and I go, what are you doing? She goes, I want you to take these shoes and give them to somebody. And I go, Hannah, you only have 2 pairs of shoes. And she said to me, I'm almost going to outgrow them. And besides, I have 1 other pair. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So then I went to my church, and I told them I wanted to leave a drop box there. And I didn't know what kind of shoes I was looking for. I hadn't gotten to that point. I just knew I wanted shoes. I called up my kids' school, and they said, we're in, whatever you need, let us know. And it was like unusual. They go, you want used shoes? I said, yeah, I want them from the kids, because I didn't know how else to get them. So anyway, I wanted 1,000 pair was my goal. Pretty soon, I ended up with 5,000, and they're in my house. And you couldn't get in my drive, and the garage was full, and the people kept dropping off the bags of shoes, and it was like overwhelming. So I was like, man, what am I gonna do with them,
Yeah.
Because I had no plans to go to Guatemala again. So I called up a couple airlines, and no one had any interest. No one knew me. And then I was thinking, gosh, I don't know myself. What am I doing, So I called up Jesse White, who I've known for years. I know before he was Secretary of State, and he's one of the kindest-hearted people I've ever met. And I said, I hate to do this, but I think I need help here. I've got all these shoes in my house. And he's like, it's great, it's beautiful what you're doing. It's beautiful. I go, I don't know what I'm doing yet. And he called American Airlines. I had a meeting with them. So I meet the heads of 3 different departments at American Airlines. And we go to lunch, and they want to listen to what I'm doing. So at the end of the lunch, instead of ordering dessert, they ordered Kleenex, because we were all sitting there crying about what I had seen, and it just was the strangest thing. So they agreed to ship my first shipment of shoes. which
And
was $2,500.
did you go back to that village in Guatemala
Yeah,
and deliver
we did.
them?
Well, actually, I went to two places. I had the shoes trucked back to Patin, but they agreed to take 2,500 pair because I only told them I had 1,000 and I got 5,000. So they said they'll take half of them. So I ended up having to wash them and clean them up to ship them. And then I found a handicapped orphanage there that I took some shoes to. And I kept seeing the need, like people were coming up to me in the hotel and go, "Hey, are you the lady that brought the shoes?" And I was like, "Why?" Suspicious. And they go, "Well, we need shoes." And it was great. It was great. And in front of the McDonald's, the kids there were begging for French fries, and I would hand them a pair of shoes, and they'd run away with them, and they'd come back and they go, "Can I come home with you?" I mean, over a pair of shoes. So it was.
Right.
That's how it started, the first trip.
You're listening to Worldview from Chicago Public Radio. I'm Jerome McDonald, speaking with Mona Purdy. She is the founder of the Share Your Souls Foundation. And okay, so that was 3.5 years ago. What happened?
Well, I still had the problem of the other portion of the shoes, 2,500 pair, in my garage. And I was panicked because I was like, I can't keep these here. But shoes kept coming into my house. So I said to my kids, what are we going to do with these shoes? Because I can't go out of the country again. I mean, I didn't know where Guatemala was till I went there. So someone says, go to the Appalachians. And I didn't know what that was either. I didn't.
Right.
I knew it was poor. So I get a trailer from U-Haul, my 3 kids, and a borrowed truck. And we drive to Lexington. And we stayed at a friend of mine's mansion. And we stayed at this mansion. And the kids thought, wow, if this is where the poor live, we want to live here. It was like we hadn't gone to Harlan yet. So then we go to Harlan. And I had not seen poor in America like I'd seen there. They have outdoor plumbing. They have outdoor water. Their playgrounds are it looks like an old empty lot. And there's no heat. I mean, they still burn coal. And their way of life is still old tobacco. It's all strip mined out. And the kids wear old boots. I mean, it was like being in a true third world country, like Eastern Europe. It was just bizarre. And the people let us stay in their houses, and I thought, gosh, where do you go in America? And they let you come in with 3 kids and just stay in your house if they don't know you. And so I jokingly said, I won't take any ashtrays or towels. And they told me, if you need anything and we have it, take it. Because they were so appreciative of the shoes we brought. Wow. And we brought winter boots also.
Now, how did you decide that, well, now I've got these 5,000 shoes out of my life, I'm going to stop?
Oh, yeah, I thought I threw the bone, I did my good deed, and move on with my life, because people kept dropping the shoes off. And or they call, are you still taking the shoes? I was like, no, why don't you take the shoes? And someone says, well, why don't you collect books? And I was like, why don't you? I'm done. I helped these kids, and it was a great thing, but I still wasn't over it. I still wasn't healed. Every time the shoes came to my house, I'd look at them and go, wow, wouldn't some kid love to have these? And then when I went to go talk to a spiritual person, I said, what's up with this? And he looks at me and he smiles and he said, some people choose their destiny and yours has been chosen. I was like, no, you got this all wrong, and he's got it wrong too. It's not going to happen. But then we went to, our next trip was back to Guatemala and then to Honduras again. And the shoes kept coming in big time.
So how do you, I mean, you've got to make arrangements. I mean, how do people
They were
spread
calling
the
my
word?
house and they go, can we collect shoes? Can we bring them to your house? And I was like, okay, and they did. And then the basement got full. And then the other level of my house became full. And I was washing them in my house. And they were laid out all over the house. Like you had to have a path. There was a path to the bathroom. And then there was a path to go upstairs. And the shoes were on my stairs. It was out of a science fiction movie.
So last year, about how many people donated shoes? How many groups?
The first year I started, we had 12 church or schools, churches, individuals. The second year it was 36. Last year we had 180 just in Illinois, and now we had 6 states. We just got 2 more states.
So now this is a full-time job?
It's become a full-time job, but I still do hair out of my house, and my kids have a little pet sitting thing.
How do you, if you're spending all your time doing this,
yeah,
how does it work? How does the money thing work?
We had a fundraiser last year. Well, I was funding it myself, and then I became a 501, and they told me I cannot fund it myself. There's some legal issues about it. And all of a sudden, the police had come to my house. The neighbors had complained. I was labeled a public nuisance, and my house an eyesore. There were tarps with the shoes piles in front of my house. You could not see my house from the street. And then the snow melted, and that's when I became exposed. The tarps were bright blue, and it was terrific. Like if you ever watch a cartoon or something and they show someone's house decorated at Christmas, my house was shoes, bags, and boxes of shoes. It was unbelievable.
So what are you doing with the shoes now?
Well, then, because of the story came out, Phil Cadner at the Southtown, who's a great guy, did a story about the police coming to my house threatening to serve me with a summons, a court fine and all this if I didn't move the shoes. And it was really funny because the woman that called that Sunday morning, she's turned out to be a really good friend of mine. Her and her husband own the Mattress World, and they donated us a warehouse.
Oh.
So we moved into the warehouse, and we did 8 of our largest shipments out of there. And kids from the schools got to come there, and they get their community service hours. And the parents come. We have 8 families with adopted children, and they come and work there. So you don't have to go out of the country to be around, people of different backgrounds.
So you mean the adopted children are from Guatemala?
Their families, right? They're from Guatemala, Bulgaria. One of my favorites is from Bulgaria. Some right here from the south side, and they come and help work. It's great.
So what kind of shoes do you collect?
We collect gym shoes, sandals, dress shoes, athletic shoes, ballet shoes, tap shoes. The tap shoes usually go to the Indian reservation in Rosebud. They put it on the radio when they sight a tapper. They go, we've sighted another tapper down here in Rosebud. It's radio material there. And then we collect rollerblades. Some of the kids have never had them. And it's a good thing. The white communion shoes that we collect, we take to the Latino neighborhood. It lightens up the family's financial load in that neighborhood. And the dress shoes we take to either the community on the south side of Chicago, which is Harvey, Dixmoor, Phoenix, and Robbins, and the little winter boots. It lightens up the family's financial load there too.
How many people does it take? I mean, how do you get shoes ready? It sounds like a massive process.
Well, there's a process. I still have American Airlines on board. They do not ship my shoes anymore. They still ship me. We have a land trucker, which you have to have a land trucker, Beacons.
Right.
And then people could sponsor the shipment of shoes, and now we're ocean freighting. I mean, it's gotten quite big from 3.5 years ago. So a school will call, and a mom will say, well, we want to do a shoe drive. And I say, do you want to do a shoe collection or a shoe drive? And she'll say, well, what's the difference? A collection is when kids are told, bring in your old shoes. And they do. And they drop them off in a bag, and they don't learn anything. A shoe drive is when the shoes are collected, and kids get to sort them, talk about them, and then they get to take a trip to the laundromat, which most kids here in the States have not, privileged kids have never been in a laundromat, much less washed dirty, smelly gym shoes that they're going to give to somebody else. I mean, they've not done it. And someone said to me, why don't we go to Nike or why don't we go to a shoe company? That would eliminate the kids here that need to learn about sharing, because we don't teach our kids about sharing.
And so do you have a cut for shoes? Do you say, well, these shoes are, went through the washer, they're still too dirty,
Yeah, if they fall apart, we get rid of them. Yeah, definitely. And the wingtips we don't take, and I've gotten some high heels and stiletto ankle straps. I'm like...
And so, I mean, do you take more than children's shoes now?
We take baby, toddler, up to junior high. Well, I call it child friendly. If, say, an adult has some shoes that they haven't been in the closet 20 years and they're in great shape, we'll take them. But most adults have had their shoes for too many years to give to a kid,
right.
Like their foot imprint's still in the shoe.
Sure.
We don't
That's
take
out.
them. Right.
You're listening to Worldview from Chicago Public Radio. I'm Jerome McDonald. I'm speaking with Mona Purdy, and we're talking about her Share Your Souls Foundation. She's the founder of it, and it's been running for 3.5 years now. And I went on your website, and now you're in a lot of places. You've shipped lots of places in the last 3.5 years: Argentina, Cambodia, Chile, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, Chicago, Honduras, India, Jamaica, Lithuania, Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe is our new project. That'll be a huge.
How did you get started?
We met the people from Zimbabwe that were at the conservatory. They have an exhibit going on. I think it just ended. I think it's ended this week. And the sculptures that they have there are for sale, and the proceeds will go to help the poor in Zimbabwe, which the country is under a lot of problems right now. But the AIDS issue for the kids, their hands and their feet seem to be like a very sensitive issue. And when I met them, they donated a sculpture for my auction, which was great because a good friend of mine got it. He's a doctor. His son works with me, Jonathan Vastakis, and he goes around to the kids with me and talks about Share Your Souls.
And how many places are you getting shoes from now? Is it just from the Chicago area, or is it more?
We have a lot of schools. There's the whole state of Illinois did a shoe drive over the summer with the rec centers, and we hope they're going to do it again this year.
The rec centers?
The rec centers, they have pools. The park
Oh, the
districts came on
recreation
board.
facilities.
But I want it to be in every village hall in Illinois, and then I want it to be in every state. And I think everyone should recycle their shoes. And a lot of people think we just give shoes to poor kids in other countries. We don't. Some are people just like us that have had a natural disaster or a military issue, and they've had to leave their home for whatever reason, and they've had the same shoes on for the last year or so. And then someone called me up and they go, "Do you take shoes to Kosovo?" I'm like, "We haven't yet, but we can. We will. We'll work at it." So that's another project. So that's how we hear about places too.
And so, do you ever think I'll do more than shoes? I'll take some toys. I'll take some this. I'll take some.
We thought about it. A year ago, we started collecting handicapped equipment because I had never been around or seen kids afflicted by landmines until we started shipping to Cambodia. And I didn't go because that was when SARS broke out. But the people that do, there's 40 orphanages, and a lot of people here don't want to hear about it because a lot of the landmines put there, I believe we had something to do with. So they don't want to hear about it. But the kids there, sometimes their legs aren't blown off. It's an arm or part of their face, and they're orphaned. The parents are dead from AIDS or whatever. And they didn't know how to put the shoes on that we shipped. They don't know put on sandals, of course, because that's all they've ever had. But they were tying the laces around their ankles and tying them together and stuff. They had never had gym shoes before, so.
That's really something. Now, so your goal here is definitely to go national. You want
Yes.
to go national?
Yes.
And basically, do you have a plan for this? Is there a franchising plan? How do you get
No,
rid
there's
of
not.
some of the work?
I should say there is. It's been working. I don't know. It's the right thing to be doing. Recycling gently worn things that someone else can use. I don't know. I don't know how this is working out so well, but we've not had a problem. There's not been anything that didn't work out from the beginning. I know it's the wildest thing. It amazes me, but there's nothing's going awry.
What do you? How do people help? You've got a website. You've got volunteer opportunities.
Right. But I need people to take over doing the task of the shoe drives and getting the shoes to me ready to ship, instead of having me do all the work. And the shoe collections are great, but we have a lot of kids in junior high and high school that get their hours working with me. We need a warehouse. We just lost our warehouse. We had a 8,000 square foot warehouse that was just sold. So it forced us to do some quick shipments out this last week. On a Monday, we shipped to Guatemala. And on a Tuesday, we prepared a shipment that left for India on Wednesday morning of last week through a friend of mine, Neil Berg. And Thursday, we shipped to North Dakota to a reservation. And we just sent our last shipment yesterday to Rosebud, South Dakota.
So you're out of shoes.
We're out
but
of
you're
shoes.
Well,
No, the shoes are back at my house again. So I'm sure they'll be getting a visit from the police anytime soon.
So if somebody has a warehouse,
Right, we want one on southwest suburbs, right, Alsip area.
Okay.
Palis, Hickory, somewhere in there. And we need loading docks
You
with that
need
warehouse too.
Loading docks and
Yes,
warehouse.
right.
Okay. So why do you keep doing this? What are you learning about people and people's needs?
You know what I've learned? A lot of the people from different backgrounds that come to work at my warehouse, a lot of prejudice that they are developing at their ages, grammar school, it's changed their behavior towards other people, even poor people. My kids have become kinder to the kid that's not dressed well at school because they know maybe it's not about them. Maybe it's where they've come from or where they've been in their life. Also, I have a huge group of Irish women that work with me, and I was wondering why they're really successful. Why do they come here and box shoes with me? And I mean, they don't need to. And they tell me stories that they remember their parents telling them of the old country when they didn't go to school because they didn't have shoes. And it's good because it keeps them grounded and it keeps all of us grounded to not forget those stories. And people tend to share more in the third world countries than I've ever seen here. I don't need to see my neighbors for 6 months, and I won't miss them, and they don't miss me. These other countries, someone has a lid, someone has the pot, they bring the vegetables, they all have a meal. I think the concept needs to be brought back here.
Well, thanks very much for joining us. It's a wonderful thing you're doing, and I'm sure you'll have more good fortune with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mona Purdy is the founder of the Share Your Souls Foundation, and you can find out more about the Share Your Souls organization on their website. It's at shareyoursouls.com. We also have a link up to it on our website at chicagopublicradio.org/worldview, and you can go to their website and you can volunteer, you can offer a warehouse, you can learn how to do a shoe drive with the Share Your Souls Foundation. This was another installment in our Global Activism series, and this was a suggested story by John Kehoe, and we're interested in more suggestions to fuel this series along, and so we're looking for individual people with their stories of how they're making a difference in the world, and you can suggest them to us at our website at chicagopublicradio.org/worldview. Tomorrow on Worldview, we are going to speak with Neil Ferguson. He is the author of Empire, The Rise and Demise of the British World Order and Lessons for Global Power. The book caused something of a sensation when it came out. It talked about the benefits of the British Empire and offered a little advice to the U.S. Empire. And Neil Ferguson is pretty free with his advice to the U.S. Empire, and we'll talk with him tomorrow on Worldview. He's actually in Chicago to kick off the Humanities Festival. The Humanities Festival got underway today with his opening lecture, and the Humanities Festival is this avalanche of cultural events, 150 cultural events running through November 9th, and this time around it's focused on a bit of an economic theme called Saving and Spending, and people should pick up a program and check out the many, many cultural events surrounding the Chicago Humanities Festival. And Neil Ferguson's lecture is just the first of many there, and we'll feature a few of the people from the Humanities Festival on Worldview, but you should certainly get out yourself and see some things at the Chicago Humanities Festival. Thanks very much for listening to Worldview today. Worldview is produced by Steve Bynum and Andrea Wenzel and Dave McGuire. Melanie Palmer engineered today. I'm Jerome McDonnell, and you've been listening to Worldview from Chicago Public Radio.